Good evening, guys. So, tonight is going to be a little different. So, if you guys remember a couple of weeks ago, I did an interview with um, Gran, and I found it like super interesting to get to know somebody else, get to know their story, get to know who they are. Um, and I think I kind of want to like lean more into that and do more interviews. So, tonight we're going to kind of go through the interview questions, and if you guys want to answer along, that's cool. But just going through like the interview questions and like kind of interviewing and giving you all a chance to get to know me as well and the dogs apparently. Um, so I'm just gonna wait for a couple of people to get in here and kind of explain, I guess, a little bit more, and then we'll start doing some of the questions so that you guys get a chance to get to know me, but like to be able to see some of the questions that I might be asking like other people. Okay, so the first question is where and when were you born? So I was born in West Virginia in 1989, May of 1989. Um, I'm not going to give a specific place, but I was born in West Virginia. Um, did I enjoy school and what was my favorite subject? So I did not enjoy school. Um, but history was my favorite subject. Favorite meal as a kid, steak and salad were like my favorite meals as a kid. Um, that question really doesn't apply to me. It just says where were you born, at home or in a hospital. So um, during the 80s and 90s, I think most people definitely were born in a hospital. So I was born in a hospital. Um, did I finish high school? No, I did not finish high school. I did drop out, but I did get my GED. Um, School just was not it for me. Um, it was okay in like middle school era. I enjoyed middle school. High school was not it. I didn't particularly care for elementary school either. But high school just was not it for me. My favorite school memory. Hmm, favorite school memory. A lot of mine are like actually just being in school and being with my friends. And again, more middle school era. What did I think I was going to be when I grew up? I was pretty sure I was going to be a nurse, and I actually did start some college courses for nursing, but um, when you have kids, it makes it a little more difficult. So I didn't actually finish my degree. Did I ever argue with my parents over anything? Absolutely, a lot, and it got me in a lot of trouble. Um, I think there are generations that would never even consider arguing with their parents, but we certainly did. Um, what age were you when you got your first job? So I was 15, and it was extremely limited. I could only work 4 hours a day and could not exceed 20 hours a week. Um, so I was very limited on what I could do, and my minimum wage that I was making at 15 was $5.75 an hour. Closest relative when you were growing up and what they were like. So my grandfather was everything. Absolutely everything. So he taught me how to ride a bike, taught me how to shoot basketball, um, all kinds of stuff. Like he was everything. So he was probably the closest person I was. So now this next portion would be like, so that's like your childhood, teenage years types of questions. But then the next part is marriage and parenting. And so there's going to be questions in here that are somewhat directed towards an older generation because I would like to keep my interviews more so on the older generation. But I'll answer what I can. What do you believe is key to a successful marriage? So I don't think it's just one particular thing. Personally, I feel like trust, communication, and the biggest thing is, and I see a lot of people like get so wrapped up in their spouse that they forget who they are. So I feel like having individual things that are interesting to you or to your spouse, because it definitely applies to them too, but like you have to be able to have your own thing and maintain who you are. um, I think that's very important because you don't want to lose yourself in someone else. How did you meet your spouse and know that they were the one? I met my spouse, see, almost 20 years ago. Actually 20 years ago. And we were in the local fire department together. Both of us were going through fire classes and EMT courses, and we would ride back and forth to those classes together, and things just kind of progress the more you get to know someone, you know. And how did I know they were the one? I guess kind of just like a feeling you get. It's like a gut feeling. I can't really put it into words. It's more like a gut feeling. Did you go on a honeymoon, and where did you go? No, we did not go on a honeymoon. I'm not really, I guess, interested in that. I like to travel, but it's not like a big thing for me. Was your husband present during the birth of your children? Yes, he was present during both of them.
I just wasn't there during conception.
Go away. Greatest thing about being a parent. Oh, wow, so much. I think for me, it was a lot of the firsts. So, like, their first steps, their first words, watching them figure out how to do things on their own, and become independent at the same time, fearing that independence because you don't want to let them go. You're their babies. They're your babies, but you know, like, you have to. So I think definitely their firsts. That was probably the greatest thing, watching them become little people. Being a parent is definitely, I don't know, the greatest thing for me. Hardest thing about being a parent? Well, there's a couple of things. I think the biggest one for me is watching my children go through something and knowing you can't fix it for them. And the other one is, and I'm not talking about big things, but watching your child make mistakes and knowing that you have to let them make those mistakes in order to learn from them. Not big ones, you know, but little ones to be able to learn. And you know they're making a mistake, but you have to let them do it anyway so they learn from them. So I think those are the hardest things. What do I do for work? So for the last 18 years, I have been a stay-at-home mom. Sorry, the dog was going kind of crazy. That's been my job. Doctor's appointments and football games and basketball tryouts and dentist appointments. Those have been my jobs. Who do you think influenced you and your life? So I don't think it's any one particular person. I think I have a lot of people in my life that have taught me who to become, how to become that person. And I take snippets from every single person that's ever been in my life because I want to be more well-rounded. So exposing yourself to people that have different points of view and then kind of compiling it all together. So I think it's everyone who has ever been in my life has been an important influence. Of all the things you learned from your parents, what was the most valuable? I don't think it was from my parents, but I think a lot of my family, the thing I took away from it was family was everything. So learning that your family is who you are and a big part of you, that's probably what I thought was the most valuable. Do you remember the first movie you ever saw in a theater? So, no. But the first movie I ever saw in a theater that I remember was in middle school. And I believe it was some sort of Christmas movie, but I can't remember the name of it. What type of upbringing did your parents have? So I'm not entirely sure. I think my mom's parents were fairly strict. And I'm really not sure about my dad's. So I'm not really, I would say one strict and one I'm not sure. My best life advice. Well, it's not mine, but one of the things that has kept me kind of grounded is what my uncle told me, and that is if you can lay your head on the pillow at night and know that you've done the right thing, that's all that matters. So that is something I've kind of etched in there. The most rewarding thing about getting older. I don't know. I might have to come back to that question. Favorite holiday and why? So Christmas is definitely my favorite holiday. And I think it's because in my family, Christmas was always everyone. Like everyone was in the same place at the same time. Cousins, aunts, uncles, grandparents, great grandparents. Everybody was together. And it was like the one time of year you could count on for everyone to be in the same place. What do you think is your greatest strength? I don't necessarily see myself as a strong person, but I would say my greatest strength is being able to turn anything into something funny, probably as a coping mechanism, but finding laughter and joy and peace is like what I'm after. So putting a positive spin on things probably. What do you think is your greatest weakness? So probably that I give people too many chances for the same thing. I'd say that's probably my greatest weakness. What age was my favorite? So, again, a lot of these questions are targeted towards an older generation, but probably my early 20s, where like both my kids were still babies. Probably. I'm going to go with that. I'm going to go where both my kids were still babies. What did you learn from the women in your family? Oh, so much. I guess it depends on which woman specifically, but my one aunt was an extreme caregiver, and so I think that's where I took a lot of things from her. Laughing and just taking care of everybody around you. My one grandmother was extremely strong and independent and very much her own person. So I think I learned a ton from the women in my family on how to be who I am today. What did you learn from the men in your family? Ooh, so again, like my grandfather was probably like the most important, I think, for me anyways, as far as when I was a kid. Like I don't really know. I mean, growing up, the men were kind of, I don't want to say separated, but like everybody was in one room, but it was like the men were having conversations and the women were having conversations. And I feel like, yeah, everybody conversated, but I don't know. I don't really know what I learned from the men in my family. One thing I learned from one of them was that regardless of your situation, being bitter about it isn't going to do anyone any good except hurt yourself. So I guess that is one thing I learned. Are you more like your mom or your dad? I definitely look more like my dad. But I wouldn't say that I'm really, like, maybe a good combo. I wouldn't say I'm anything, I don't know. There's part of me that wants to say I'm nothing like them. And then there's another part of me that wants to say maybe there's little tidbits in there. I don't know. I really don't know if I'm more like my mom or my dad. Again, it goes back to the other question of, taking little snippets and tidbits from a lot of people and making a general who I've become by snippets of everyone. Have I ever met someone famous? Yes. I can't remember his name. I know he'll know, but I can't remember his name. He was the paramedic guy on Squad 51. I can't remember his name. I'm sure you do. Am I more introverted or extroverted? Yeah, Randolph Mantooth. That's who I met. So it depends on the day. Yeah, Johnny Gage. Some days I'm introverted and I don't want to leave. I don't want to be away from the house. And then other days I'm all about going out and talking to people and having a good time. And probably more introverted. What character traits do you respect most in other people? So honesty is a big one for me. Like, I just need you to be honest, even if it hurts. A helpfulness towards other people. So, like, one of the things I've taught my kids to do is if you see an older lady, struggling to put things in the trunk of her car while you're at Walmart, you should probably help her. So a willingness to help other people, and respect for people, even when you disagree. You can disagree. We can disagree. I disagree with people in my family all the time. But at the end of the day, we're still family. You're entitled to your opinion as much as I'm entitled to mine, and we walk away from the table the same way we sat down. So I feel like that's a big thing that I respect in other people, is the ability to disagree and still be okay. Do you have a life motto? Actually, I have two. It is what it is, because most situations, it is what it is. You can't change it, and if you can change it, then do something about it, but it is what it is, and no one makes it out alive. So enjoy your life and have fun and enjoy every second of it, because we all have the same, nobody makes it out alive. What is the weirdest thing you've ever eaten? I'm a very, 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 very picky eater. So I don't think that there's anything that I don't think I've ever eaten anything that isn't like an everyday thing. I've never tried shark or anything like that. So, what do I do for fun or relaxing? I like to binge watch. That's my me time. I need a break from everything that is happening around me, and I just need me time. So I like to binge watch. And it doesn't even need like to be anything new, or maybe it's something I haven't seen in a while. But I like to binge watch because it makes my mind go somewhere else. Do you think it's more important to focus on the journey or the destination? So I think it depends on the situation. But I do think it's more important to focus on the journey. There's times where I sit here and, my oldest is 18 and I wish that I had been able to slow things down a little, and focused more on the journey instead of the destination of like just getting them to bed, or can we just make it to nap time, instead of realizing that those days would soon be over. Any particular memories you remember more than others? I guess that depends. Are you asking me about my childhood, or being a parent, or there's a ton of memories, and I hope I'll always remember them. What does home mean to you? So my family, my kids, but in the long run, I hope I've done what I was supposed to do here to make it home. So I think depends on the concept of what you consider home, but either way, my kids, my family, and then ultimately hoping I've done what I was supposed to do to make it home. Favorite curse word? So about a year ago or 2 years ago, I actually stopped any and all form of cursing, but I think my favorite was probably shit, and it's because it's more well-rounded. You can kind of use it in any situation, and anytime you drop something. So I think that was probably my favorite one. So the whole point of all of this was really like just an opportunity for people to get to know me a little better. But more importantly, I want to start doing these more often with other people, because I think everyone has a story. Everyone has stuff they've been through, things they've accomplished, and I think everybody's story is important to tell. But more importantly, when you sit here and you think about the question of who do you think, like as a kid, closest relative to you when they were growing up and what they were like. So, with the fact that my grandfather was literally everything, these are questions I wish I could have asked him. Things I wish that I had had more time to be able to get to know about him. So being able to have that here now, so that when my kids are older and have their own grandkids, maybe someday they'll get to see this video and have an idea of maybe what I was like. Or, for instance, Gran. She has grandchildren, and hopefully someday her great grandchildren will be able to see what she was like. And so I feel like it's the ability to not only hear someone's story, but generations from now, those people will be able to look back and show them, who they were like, what that person was like, what they sounded like, what they looked like, how they behaved. So I think it's a cool thing to be able to have these on tape and have these questions. Now, I quickly went through all these questions, and I honestly didn't even ask all of them, because I just kind of wanted to quickly go through a lot of the questions and give you all an opportunity to kind of just to get to know a little bit about me. I don't want to spill it all at once. But I think it will be interesting to have some of these conversations with people and hopefully get some more people to interview. But I think that's where, like, I felt maybe the most like I could make a difference in helping other people to tell their stories and who they are. If there's questions that you all think that, like, you think I should be asking, is there something that I've missed, or do you think there's something more I should go? Now, when I'm interviewing someone else, of course, I'm going to be able to, elaborate or ask more questions to fill in some blanks. But I think that's kind of where I'm going with this. There's a lot of questions on here about childhood and stuff that, I didn't answer, like, what chores did you have? I just kind of did whatever I was told to do when I was told to do it. So that wasn't really a question to answer because you just did what you were told to do. Worst thing I ever got in trouble for? I tended not to get in trouble. Most of the things I got in trouble for were like typical things: not going to bed on time, didn't clean up my shoes from the front of the door. I didn't really have that streak in me to do stuff that I wasn't supposed to be doing. My sister, on the other hand, whole other story, whole other ballgame. I hope she'll let me interview her, but we'll see. She got herself in enough trouble to fill in for both of us. I'll put it that way. Yeah, I was not in the military, so of course I didn't do any of those questions. And then going back to what's the most rewarding thing about getting older, seeing things differently, probably. Having the ability to not super react at something. When you're younger, you just want to get right on it and react, and you don't sit back and think about the consequences of how you're reacting. You instantly want to get mad about something, but then there's a consequence or whatever. Your brain has this ability to, as you get older, I think, to differentiate between when you're supposed to get mad and when you're not supposed to get mad. So I think the changes that are happening now I may have a different answer in 20 years on that one. I think there's things I'm looking forward to, but as far as right now, the most rewarding thing is just my mental abilities. I guess they're getting better as I get older. He was the only one, right? No, because it was the people from Night Watch too. The famous people. I don't remember who all was there, but it was definitely some people from Night Watch. Dan and Titus, yeah, was from the Night Watch people. We went to an EMS expo in Baltimore, and we met those people. It was fun. I wish when I went to New York I'd have been able to see someone famous, but that didn't happen. I did, however, get my photo with a New York police officer. That was kind of fun. He was kind of cute. So I think that's my new plan here, guys. I mean, we're still going to do family night with the kids and doing games and trivia and things like that. But I think I'm leaning more towards this interview thing. Definitely just made me feel a different way about this. It made me feel like I was doing something. So I think that's what we're going to do. So if you want to be interviewed, let me know. Right now I'm trying to keep it like older generation, but I'm willing to interview anyone who wants to share their story. I think that's going to be all for tonight, guys. All right, good night.